Today's lecture is on photosynthesis and its connection to cellular respiration. As you can see here on slide 1, this is considered an energy path because it goes in one direction. So the energy in ecosystems is provided by the sun. It's captured through photosynthesis by the autotrophs, and then the heterotrophs eat the autotrophs as their source of energy. Both autotrophs and heterotrophs do cellular respiration, which is the process of taking food and breaking it down into a form of energy that the organisms can use. To begin with a couple introductory things. First, both these next two lectures will talk a lot about ADP and ATP. ATP is the molecule that organisms use directly as energy. So having glucose in your body is great, but it's got to be broken down into ATP before your body can use it. ATP is considered a high energy molecule. The T stands for tri, and that refers to these 3 phosphate groups that are attached on the end of the molecule. When the body needs energy for some specific task, it breaks off one of these phosphate groups, releasing energy that the body can use, resulting in a molecule called ADP. So if I go swimming, my body's going to use a whole bunch of ATP to power the muscle movement. ADP, the D stands for 2, because I now only have 2 phosphate groups that are attached, and the third one, I guess, would be free in the cytoplasm. Using the energy of the food that I eat as I break it down, I can regenerate or recreate the ATP. So this is a cycle that goes around and around. I break the ATP down for energy, I break my food down, and reconstruct the ADP into ATP. Your book talks about thinking of it like a battery. The ATP is fully charged. It has stored energy to do some function. So just like when I use my iPod, the battery becomes less charged, and then I can use electricity to recharge it. So the same thing with ATP. High energy molecule, low energy molecule. Moving on, what you want to know from this slide is, where does photosynthesis take place? And that is the chloroplast. The chloroplasts are green because they contain chlorophyll, and they're an organelle or small functioning unit within a cell. Again, here are the products of this reaction. It takes light energy to make it go, and then, these are the reactants, what we start with. These are the products over here, the things we end with. This is the formula for photosynthesis, the balanced equation with the 6's here. This is on the sheet on the lower side where there's pictures for you to color. One of our other questions before we start the whole chemistry of photosynthesis is, why are plants green? Basically, the color that we see object as depends on the wavelength of light they reflect back to our eyes. And what we see here is that between the wavelengths indicated here with my 2 lines, chlorophyll does not absorb much energy in that wavelength range. And so it reflects that wavelength back to our eyes. So trying to summarize, plants look green because chlorophyll reflects the wavelengths of green light. A little bit about, well, how does photosynthesis capture energy? And basically, if you think of a photon as a little pocket of light, it hits electrons in the chlorophyll, and that energizes that electron. So it goes to a higher energy level. And then on the next slide here, as that energy level drops back to its normal position, it transfers that energy to another molecule. So what we really have is a transfer of energy in different forms. This is light energy, and this going up and down, and then passing it on to another molecule. We've changed it now into chemical energy. So it's a conversion from one type of energy to another. Looking at the photosynthesis kind of process as a whole, photosynthesis, as we said, occurs in the chloroplasts. It happens in two sets of reactions. The light-dependent reactions, which have to have light to happen, and the Calvin cycle, named after a scientist named Calvin, which are light-independent reactions, which means they occur in both the light and the dark. We'll look at the first set first. That didn't work well. Anyway, the light-dependent reactions take water. They use that energy from the sun that was captured by chlorophyll to split the water in half. The result of that splitting is two things. The electrons and the hydrogens take these two low-energy molecules and convert them to high-energy molecules. And then the oxygen that's left becomes basically a waste product for the plant. So it just gives off oxygen because that's what's left after the water has been split. It's a good deal for us because we need the oxygen to stay alive. So the light-dependent reaction's purpose is to create these high-energy molecules which provide the energy for the Calvin cycle. And again, the water split, the energy is absorbed by these two low-energy molecules, ADP and NADP, and they become ATP and NADPH. All right, looking at the second half of the reaction, then the Calvin cycle basically takes the energy that was created by the light-dependent reactions and uses it to combine carbon dioxide and water to make sugar, or as we refer to it in the science world, glucose. Another way of looking at this is just a picture. If you'll fill in the blanks on your note sheet here. We get light and water going in as reactants into the light-dependent reactions, and that creates oxygen on the bottom, as well as these high-energy molecules. The high-energy molecules then go through the Calvin cycle, taking carbon dioxide and a little bit more water and converting it to sugar, resulting in them now being low-energy molecules, which are recharged, if you will, by the light-dependent reactions. This is a little look at the Calvin cycle. You do not need to know the details of this, but what I wanted you to understand is it's a cycle, so it goes around and around, and that carbon dioxide is added to an existing carbon molecule from the previous cycle, and then kind of reshaped or formed along the way. The key idea on the bottom here, though, is that 2 3-carbon sugars are given off with each 2 cycles of the Calvin cycle, and when you add those together, you get your 1 glucose molecule. Each of these rearranging of the carbon molecules within this cycle require the ATP or NADPH, which again are high energy molecules. So as we click through here, carbon dioxide enters the cycle. We add some energy to combine these molecules and then to rearrange them. We get these 3 carbons coming out. When we put 2 together, we get our 6-carbon sugar. We rearrange the molecules again, requiring some energy to be put into it so that the cycle can start again. On the bottom of the sheet, on the front side, there are 2 coloring panels, and I asked students to take some colored pencils using this guide, and just as an exercise to find the things, as well as for our visual learners to color those in. And then the chloroplast, if you would make green. And there should be 3 of them on the left side and then the one giant one on the right. That is it for today's lecture on photosynthesis.